Point of Rocks is a small town located in southern Frederick County, Maryland, parallel to the Potomac River, where the state of Virginia lies on the other side. The town got its name because of the rock formation on the side of the Catoctin Mountain caused by erosion of the Potomac River, creating a sharp turning point made of rock, thus calling it Point of Rocks. The former Baltimore and Ohio Railroad ran through the town of Point of Rocks as the B&O main line that ran from Cumberland to Baltimore east and westbound. In 1873, the B&O completed the Metropolitan branch that would run between Point of Rocks into Washington, D.C., and was easier to reroute passenger trains to Washington without the need of going to Baltimore to turn trains around towards Washington. Not only was the Metropolitan branch completed, so was the Point of Rocks station that served the B&O passenger trains and some freight too. The main station building is a 2.5-story triangular Gothic revival with a 4-story tower and a 1.5-story wing at the base. The tower had a pyramidal roof containing a dormer on each side. On top was a square cupola supporting a pyramidal peaked roof. Many times throughout the years, Point of Rocks suffered many historical floods from the Potomac River, and the railroad faced all sorts of problems. Not only that, in the late 1900s, the station was burnt down and then was rebuilt again and was named a historical landmark in 1970. However, in 2010, the south side awning on the main building collapsed under the weight of the record snowfall and was later removed, leaving half the building missing cover. The B&O eventually turned into the Chessie system, which later merged with the Seaboard Rail Lines to form the modern Class 1 known as the Chessie Seaboard Merger, or CSX Transportation as everyone calls it today. The Point of Rocks station building today is owned by the CSX Maintenance of Way crews, but the platforms are open to the public and are also in service for the Maryland Area Rail Commuter, or the MARC train, in which the Brunswick Line services allow the passengers to ride to and from Washington, D.C., as well as Brunswick and Martinsburg, West Virginia. The Brunswick Line operates to and from Washington, D.C. and Frederick, Maryland as well, but those trains don't stop here at Point of Rocks. Here we're looking westbound from the station down the CSX Metropolitan subdivision that continues on to the Brunswick and Weaverton, turning into the Cumberland subdivision and continuing onward towards Cumberland, Maryland. Note the track pattern you see here, with the tracks to the right continuing on as the tracks to the left switch on to the tracks to the right. The right side is the old main line continuing straight as the Metropolitan enters the old main line, but in modern timetables the old main line ends here at CP Point of Rocks and the Metropolitan subdivision continues west. Looking eastbound at Point of Rocks CP, you see the CSX Metropolitan subdivision continuing eastbound towards Dickerson, Germantown, as well as through Gaithersburg, Rockville, and eventually into Washington, D.C. The passengers will go into the Washington Terminal area, while CSX trains will continue on the CSX Capital subdivision up towards Baltimore or down to the R&P subdivision at JD Interlocking. Note the tracks to the left here breaking off the Met sub. That track is called the Y. It connects the Metropolitan subdivision with the old main line, so MARC trains can head to and from Frederick, Maryland without stopping and switching cabs at Point of Rocks. The Y was also created after the closing of Brunswick Roundhouse and the turntable, and the Y was added at Point of Rocks to turn locomotives around if necessary, which this still happens today. The signals you see there are called East Rocks, which let everybody know that you're on the CSX Metropolitan branch. Also looking eastbound at the other side of the building is the CSX Old Mainline subdivision, where the line continues east through Frederick, Mount Airy, as well as going into Ellicott City and meets up with the Capital subdivision at St. Denis, turning both subdivisions into the Baltimore Terminal subdivision, where the rest of the line heads into Baltimore, Maryland. The Y track is just off to the right, and that third track you see is for storage for the CSX Maintenance of Way crew, or broken rolling stock, or locomotives having issues. The signal we see here is called Satterwhite, or Route 20 as some crew members call it. The tower behind the station is the old signal tower that controlled the entire Y and its surrounding areas and has been out of service for around decades. The speed limit for passenger freight is posted at 30 miles per hour through Point of Rocks, which is timetable speed. Once you pass East Rocks, the speed opens up to 65 miles per hour for passenger and 55 for freight. As you pass Satterwhite, the speed limit opens up to 45 for passenger and 35 for freight. The Metropolitan subdivision is meant for passenger and thus higher speeds, while the old main line has tight curves along the route and is more like a country road for trains. As you head westbound, the speed limit stays 30 miles per hour until you pass both Point of Rocks and Catoctin tunnels, and the speed opens up to 60 for passenger and 40 for freight. Another sign you'll see here is a yellow DIB sign, or delay in black post, which means that if you're operating push-pull trains, the territory has no cab signals and the speed limit exceeds 30 miles per hour. You'll see these at stations where speed limit exceeds 30 miles per hour throughout the lines. You'll also see some blue signs at crossings and walkways, as well as public road crossings. These are emergency contact placards. In case of an emergency, such as a trespasser, pedestrian strike, trains blocking walkways for passengers, or even more, call the number on the sign and give them the crossing ID and milepost, in which all the information is labeled on the sign. Please note that all trespassing is unlawful, and certain areas are posted. Trespassing can result in fines, imprisonment, injuries, or even death. Please observe and obey all directions and postings, as well as crew member instructions, as well as if one is on scene or duty. Our first catch of the day is the eastbound CSX loaded coal unit en route for Baltimore, Maryland, as they take the old mainline subdivision.
No defects. No defects. Total axle 48810 of transmission.
CSX has been running their trains with distributed power units, or DPUs for short, so that way the train can have additional power spread out of the consist, either added in the middle or at the end of the train. This eliminates the need for helper crews or additional locomotives at the head end. In some cases, CSX will double its unit trains into one monstrosity of a consist, so that way, instead of making multiple individual trips to the same destination, you can have two trains connect together and run them to the same destination all in one trip. The dispatcher gave permission to this track inspector to operate on track 1 between Pointed Rocks and East Brunswick as a daily routine check of the line to make sure that all is safe for trains to proceed without any risks or delay. This is how a high rail vehicle sets up on the track before proceeding down the line.
Good morning, Danny.
Hey, thank you, sir. Your train looks good as well.
No problem, buddy. That's what we're here for.
I'll put you in a sanction for it. That was quality in motion right there, fella.
Hey, that's how we roll.
And just like that, the track inspector and his high-rail vehicle begin the inspection of Track 1 between ES Weaverton and WES East Brunswick. As we thought rail traffic was going to slow down because of the track being out of service, CSX Q217 surprises us out of the blue as they head westbound towards Louisville, Kentucky, with one locomotive leading and a mid-DPU sandwiched between 119 empty Autorack cars.
We had time to, but I think they got nervous about 276 or something. I don't know.
Yeah. They weren't there yet?
Right, they do get nervous. You think CN7?
You never know what you might learn within the radio chatter, as we thought I heard Q276 was coming, but apparently I misheard the radio. It happens sometimes when you're fanning. Somebody just reported that there is a restricting signal following the Q217 with something coming off the old mainline subdivision, which happens to be CSX E789, an empty coal unit heading westbound for Grafton, West Virginia. a regular 532 axles for this coal train. CSX will normally run their coal trains with two 6-axle locomotives and 130 coal cars either loaded or empty, but due to recent changes for CSX, most of their loaded coal units have been running with 2 rear DPUs, so that the trains can make it up the steep grades at Barnesville down the Metropolitan Subdivision and Mount Airy on the Old Mainline Subdivision, raising the axle count to 544 axles total. Since CSX started regulating DPUs on most of these coal trains, as well as other trains, I've not heard yet seen one stall from any coal train or pretty much any other train unless the train is overpowered by the tonnage, which that rarely happens, as CSX usually keeps a good track of their numbers, especially in the recent times of the PTC and other stuff like PSR that's been occurring recently for all the Class 1 railroads, especially short line railroads. It was dead for about 3 to 4 hours until finally the regular Amtrak PO29, which is the westbound Kappa Limited, makes an appearance here at East Rocks as it continues westbound, making its next station stop at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, as it continues on through the night to Chicago, Illinois.
901 Amtrak locomotive 77 West 1 approach medium East Rocks.
BC say he wanted us to report. He wanted us to report this engine to CNOC.
He did.
Alright, thanks Reggie. Just want to make sure on that.
I can let him know.
What you just heard was Amtrak PO29's crew discussing what they want to do with the leading locomotive when they arrive in Cumberland, especially since the dispatcher told them to report when they arrive in Cumberland so they could write a trouble ticket for the 29. Amtrak 29 is 1 hour late leaving Washington Union Station due to the lead locomotive having mechanical issues as well as PTC issues along the trip, and could not leave QN Tower until they fixed it, which it looks like it did. It was dead for a few more hours until finally CSX Q13829 made an appearance here at Point of Rocks as he decides to take the Met sub up to the Cap sub into Baltimore with the single stack intermodal train coming from Chicago. because Q-138 was not only lightweighted, but he was very short on axle counts, they were able to add 2 locomotives in the front with no rear or mid DPUs on this consist. Another half an hour passed and there's still no trains when finally W753 stepped out of the Shenandoah subdivision and made his way eastbound down the Metropolitan subdivision for Bladensburg, with a little surprise personally for myself.
753 432. Eastward, number 2 track. Clear signal. Medium clear signal. Pointer Rock, CSXC 432 out.
I'd like to give a big thank you to W753 for that amazing surprise. Be safe out there, guys, and I look forward to seeing you all in the near future. As traffic started getting heavier, CSX N73129 made an appearance from the Pointer Rocks tunnel as he travels eastbound 1 to 3, getting ready to get on the Old Mainline subdivision with yet another special surprise. Pay attention to the third locomotive of this consist. as the CSX dispatcher was getting ready to give out an EC1 to some train on the Metropolitan Subdivision, he also announced what trains were coming right by Pointed Rocks tonight. I guess he knew that we were there and was just giving us a heads up on what was coming tonight. Just about an hour and a half passed, and there's still no sight of trains, but we are expecting something else to come, as we had yet another clear signal for the old main line going eastbound, which later on we found out was Q372, with yet another special surprise, but this time in the rolling stock with the historical boxcar that you normally don't see on the modern Class 1 railroad today for CSX.
Engine 3345, Eastern 1 clear, signal, Pointer Rock.
That's right, a chassis boxcar that was spotted on Q372 by Chris, Lucas, and myself here at Pointed Rocks. Our next train we were expecting was CSX Q416, which is a westbound manifest that will make a station stop in Brunswick to drop off and pick up a few manifest cars and will continue on to Cumberland, Maryland, where it will terminate. There's still no sign of him, as we know that he entered QN Tower about an hour and 10 minutes ago and was expected to arrive at Pointed Rocks about 30 minutes ago. Must be late. However, we had a surprise, which was a local D701, which was a Benning turn that was going down to Benning Yards of Washington, D.C. to drop off and pick up a couple loads and empties and bring it back to Brunswick for Q371 to come pick them up later that night. A little surprise in the meantime as we wait for Q416.
CSX BC dispatcher Jacksonville answering over.
416 over.
Yeah, keep it moving west. Hold short of Lander Road until the Q136 goes by you. I am single tracked Waverton to East Brunswick. Kind of a local going into the yard, South WB. So hold at Lander Road. Get Q136 by going eastbound on 2, and then you can start west. Into the north lead, talk to the yard of East Brunswick, please, over.
We're going to hold back to Lander Road. We've got 136. Did the chief say we got Cowboys for us?
This is just crap.
This is why we like to listen to the dispatcher, because of the great and useful information that is helpful for us to understand what's going on with the line right now. So with that being said, we know the traffic is going to be action-packed here within the next 30 minutes as Q416 finally arrives at Pointed Rocks, as he just got the okay to go through Lander Road, as CSX Q136 is just about to pass East Brunswick. So everything will work out eventually, and the local is about to go into South WB. CSX-Q416 must be really heavy because his axle count was only 536 axles with 3 GEVOs in the lead and 2 mid-DPUs of Q416, which is still very unclear to me, but I must assume that the train's probably heavy. CSX-Q416 is just about to approach Lander Road as his tail end clears the Canal Street crossing and the Pointer Rocks Tunnel, as now Q136 is on its way and just got an axle count at milepost 72.1 of the defect detector at Catoctin Creek. As now we wait for Q136, we have only 2 to 5 minutes to get ready for that eastbound to come. And bada boom, here he is. Now that CSX-Q416 is blocking track 1, We just got word the Q137 is on the way, and that the dispatcher is all cleared for track 2, so now the dispatcher is about to line Q137 to go from track 1 to 2 through Pointed Rocks, and will continue all the way to Reefton, and then switch back to 1, as you see that the dispatcher is now about to line everything once again to get ready for another extraordinary event.
Thank you, 13701, H216 West. 12, made it clear, Port Roxton.
C6 Q137 has been running a little bit earlier than scheduled, usually meeting Q138 at Dorsey, Maryland. C6 Q137 today had only 2 locomotives and no mid-DPUs. That's because the train's extremely light, with barely any containers aboard, and the rest being bare tables. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to W753, Philip Lee, Chris F. Railfan, and Lucas for joining me on another extraordinary adventure here at Pointed Rocks, Maryland. Till next time, this is Tranx Productions. We's out of here.